move on to you. Now we've talked about what can we do in Belize, but we share with us what are regional or international best practices that you believe Belize can adopt for a future-ready workforce.
Thank you very much for your question and for having me. So, a proof-ready, right, labor force means a labor force that has the skills to strive in this fast-changing labor market, right? And you know, from my experience in the region, there is not one size fits all. There is not a solution for a country or even for a sector, right, within a country. But there are 4 pillars I see that are present in countries that are doing well, right? And the first pillar is aligning training and education with the demand for the private sector. And different countries are doing it differently. For example, in Jamaica, they create a sector skills councils for the global service sector. In Peru, they did one for the agriculture sector, right? Countries like Chile or Costa Rica developed very advanced labor market information systems, right? Using artificial intelligence, right? In Chile, they call it Relink. In Costa Rica, they call it Future App. And other countries are, you know, going on that direction. The second pillar is what Dr. Vincent was talking about, that is competency-based training and certification, right? And that is the core of the learning solution, translating these demands from the private sector into relevant quality training, right? That is delivered in the way that you know, a sector or a person needs, right? The learning solution can be in person, can be in the work, like in the workplace. It can be virtual, it can be in person, it can be hybrid, right? And at times needs to be adapted to the realities of a sector. For example, training a person that works in the rural areas, right? It's going to be very different than training in a urban area. You may need to have someone that goes to that property and works like out of the work hours or in on the weekends. Third, you know, high quality assurance of the system. And that entails different actions. First, for example, implementing mechanisms to evaluate learning. That can be, you know, assessment of the learners. It can be assessment of the trainers. And it can be also assessment of, you know, the assessments, right? And this is something we have supported Argentina on doing so. A second area that you need to look into the quality is quality of the training providers, of the content they deliver, right? And also of the courses. And this is something we have supported Colombia, SENA, in strengthening within the quality assurance mechanisms. A third way of doing that is developing a performance management system for the whole national training organization, right? And this is something we have worked with Sense in Chile. Next, and very important, the fourth pillar, that is sustainable financing. Training is expensive, and you know, proper budgeting and funding is very important. And again, there's no one size fits all. Different countries do it differently. For example, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados, we used competitive funding schemes to fund apprenticeships, right? In Colombia, we did social impact bonds to finance training in collaboration with the private sector for vulnerable populations. And in Ecuador, we developed a digital talent pipeline to develop advanced digital skills with a payback mechanism. So as people graduate, they can pay back the training. So I think that, you know, with a combination of aligning training with demands of the private sector, having competence-based learning, good quality assurance, and sustainable funding, Belize have all the elements, right, it needs to have future-proof workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Dulce. I love that you mentioned, having quality in terms of training programs and certifying these training institutions. So I think those are models we can start adopting in Belize to ensure that we're providing quality training as a start, right? So thanks for that, Dulce. Moving along this very insightful discussion, because I'm having fun. Are you all having fun? Right? Definitely. I'm seeing the smiles at the front, so that's definitely a plus. I'm loving it. Let's also go back to Dr. Palacio. I'm coming back to you. How can tertiary institutions now strengthen collaboration with industries to improve now the graduate employability? How can we connect now?
Of course, a very important question, and thanks for it. The key term here is relevance. It is important that the tertiary level institutions, and I could speak more about UB, because that's University of Belize, which is where I am at, the need to be relevant. And how can we be relevant? There are several ways this can happen. One, incorporate the private sector in our programs. If there's a new program to be developed, make sure you incorporate the private sector around the table to develop this program. If it's an existing program, every program should have a life cycle. At the University of Belize, it's 5 years. Then you review that program. And in every review, make sure you bring the stakeholders around the table, again, private sector, to have an input. So that is at the formative phase of what we do. Second, it is important that we incorporate private sector as well, and public sector in certain instances, as guest lecturers in our classes. Sometimes we have faculty members who have never worked the industry, but are teaching at the university or teaching at the tertiary level institution. And how can they be very relevant if they don't work the industry? So it's important that we incorporate people from outside as guest lecturers. There's another term we use called adjunct faculty. And these are people who come as part-time and teach a subject. And the way it's always done is, I cannot find on my staff someone to teach this course, so let's get an adjunct. And I'm saying, no, that is not the way it should be. There are certain subject areas that only an adjunct, somebody working in the industry, can provide. So we incorporate them into the classrooms. Again, that involves, we'll make sure that we're providing graduates for the industry. Third, we have various ways, they call it. There's the internship, there are different assignments, apprenticeships, etc. And we're grateful to the industry, private sector and public sector, to welcome our students and provide the actual internship experience that they need. Some private sectors still have the student come in and do filing for the entire semester that they're there. That is not what this apprenticeship, that is not what internship should be. Make sure you provide the experience that the students need once they graduate. Another include these industry representatives on our recruitment panels for our faculty and staff, particularly faculty teachers. On the panel, make sure you have an industry person who will know to ask the relevant questions. And in cases where a faculty member may need an assignment, a semester assignment with your business, welcome them and work with them so they could get the relevant experience, so they could teach the student. When a student comes for an internship, that is one student for that semester. If a faculty member comes for a semester, that's 35 students in some instances that will be gaining from that experience. So they welcome the teachers into your companies as well. So these are some of the easy, the low-hanging fruits that we could use for make sure that our graduates are relevant.
Yes, we're passing the mic now at the front, right? So very, very interesting points, Dr. Palacio, and I do agree it's important to integrate the private sector in terms of developing curriculums and aligning them to be workforce ready. So thanks for that, and you guys have been doing amazing in contributing to that as well. So let's now ping the ball on, pass the mic on to our next, panelist, Mr. Jaros. I want to know from your perspective, what innovations in training delivery can bridge the gap between schooling and employment?
So let's change the tense, right? Let's talk about now, not the future, right? So I call it apprenticeship 2.0, right? It's not an innovation as much as it is what's actively happening and needs to be happening. I read a document, I think it's called a Future Skills Program that was done nothing but IDB and the Belize Gap. And that study that was done talked about how apprenticeships are needed here and how bad they're needed. Okay, so STEMI Foundation, 2 years ago, we implemented an apprenticeship program with companies in the Cayo district, right? And so by doing so, we were able to implement the exact things that we're talking about now, making the classroom relevant, making the training productive to the employer. So when these kids graduated and they went to Cayo Steel, they went to Midwest Steel, they got firsthand experience. The employer saw that they were, how can I say, employable, right, and functional, and the curriculum was relevant, okay? So that's what's currently happening. I think in the future, that's only gonna grow more, right? But I kind of speak on a sidebar, is that industry must understand that the wages of the jobs and that investment from industry is needed. And that investment, the way that it looks in the future, I think the executive from Sandals, I think he said it best. They invested $5 million in a university at a resort to train their people. I think that's the future. I really do. I think that's the future of Belize in investing in their people, right? So to answer your question,
I love that last statement. You said investing in the people. And I think that is something that as employers in the private industry, we also, and even in the public, you know, it's important to invest in our people as well. So thanks for that. Beautifully said. Let's move on to Ms. Rosella. And I want to now hear or understand a bit more of how can the Labor Department work with educators to ensure that there is a skills alignment.
Okay, in terms of the Labor Department working with the education system, I think one of the things that is missing and what we are lacking is data. And data is very important. And so what can we do as a ministry, the Labor Department, in terms of ensuring that we have the data adequate to ensure that this data will support and assist educators and employers to be able to, for instance, the education system be able to train the persons so that they are ready for employment. What data is needed and how can we provide that data? So what we're doing at the Labor Department, one of our priority areas is that we need to have a labor market information system. And so we're working to ensure that we have this labor market information system. This morning, we witnessed the signing with IDB. One component of that agreement would be digitizing some of the services of the Labor Department. And under that, we have that we need to develop a labor market information system. And so what this labor market information system will do is that it will provide real-time data to all stakeholders that need this information, for instance, investors, and also the educators, the institutions that provide education, the schools, so that they know what skills are needed and be able to capture that information and develop curriculums that will align with the skills gap needed or the employment that is needed. And so that is what we're working on. We're also working on a labor intermediation platform. And so what this platform will do is that it will provide data to the labor market information system. And so this will do a matching between employers and job seekers. So job seekers can go online and employers can post their vacancies. And so this data will then flow into the labor market information system. And this labor market information system will also be shared with other ministries, for instance, Ministry of Education, who can input their data as well and also get data from there. We're also, one of the things that we're also working on is a national employment policy. And so this coming week, we're having a mission from the International Labour Organization, who we're working very closely with to support us in the development of this national employment policy. This policy is really needed. It's a framework that will guide all stakeholders related to skills, employment, and training. And it will ensure that these all align together so that then we can have a very, it can produce something for everyone. All the stakeholders can be able to benefit from this national employment policy and guide us in terms of where are the skills gap, what we need to do to ensure that we have, for instance, education system, a proper curriculum to align with the skills gap needed or to align with employment needed. Right? So these are some of the things that we're working on. These are a few things that we're working on to support the education system.
Good. I love to hear the national employment policy in the pipeline coming up, because that will definitely complement some of what we're talking here. That could be a follow-up step of what comes out from this panel, right? And of course, connecting you all together to ensure that the education is in connection with the Labor Department as well. So thanks for that, Ms. Rosella. I want to know, jump here to my good friend, Ms. Dulce, and can you share with us a bit now of how can targeted investment in human capital drive inclusive economic growth?
Yeah, so targeted investments in human capital, it's one of the most powerful tools, right, to promote inclusive and sustainable growth. And the evidence is clear, right? Developing skills not only boost productivity, but also promote social mobility. And when countries invest in human capital, they see increasing GDP, they reduce inequality, and they also expand opportunities for less advantaged people, right? And, you know, quality research shows this association between quality skills and economic outcomes, right? And you see this both at individual level and at the national level. At the individual level, the evidence suggests that at a one standard deviation increase, right, in cognitive skills is associated with 10 to 15% increase in individual earnings. And these, you know, increases, they add up at the national level, right? Or we see, like over the last 30 years, countries that experienced one standard deviation increase in cognitive skills at their workforce saw as well, on average, an increase of 2% in GDP per capita per year, right? So it's a very good investment to make. In addition to this, like cognitive general skills, right? We see that these skills that Dr. Vincent was talking about, for example, know how to do, right? The tactical skills, they're like very specific to the sectors, like very applied to the sectors. They're very important to make sure countries can, one, make better use of absorbing technology that's going to be essential in this context, marked by mega trends, like, for example, technological changes, with automation, AI, as well as the energy transition, and at the firm level, we see that there is a big challenge in the region, right? Over half of the firms in the region say that the skills pose a challenge to their growth, right? Even above regulatory and financial issues. In Belize, the last data I'm aware of registered that this percentage was 73% of the firms. So was very important, yes. And that poses, restrictions to this adoption of technology and to offer, right, opportunities to the population in general. Human capital is also key for inclusion, because we see that in the region, half of income inequality is explained by inherited factors, like, for example, parents' education. And there is evidence that, continuous investments in skills can break the cycle, right? There is evidence that kids that are enrolled in good quality education since an early age and receive this good quality education throughout their lives, over a lifetime, they have better earnings and results overall. So by 2030, 90% of the population that is currently in the labor market is the workforce of Belize, right? So investing in upskilling, reskilling is really essential, for this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dulce. It was really interesting, the information you brought on the growth on the GDP, which is something that is very important as well, and how it aligns with, of course, the skills development as well. So definitely good points. So it has been definitely amazing interaction, learning from each other and hearing, and it has been a good panel. But just for us to do a quick wrap up, I want each one of my panelists to share with me one word that you think represents Belize future ready. I can start. I can say that Belize's future ready is growing.
Yes, I say I have hope in Belize's future.
Good. Thank you for that.
I would say that Belize's future is very promising.
Love it.
Belize's future is prepared. We're all prepared for the future.
Love it. Can I hear from you, Dulce?
Human capital.
Human capital. I love it. I was worried someone would have said we are very, very economically ready. But we're getting there, right? So I think we have, interacted and understood how important, skills development is, and how important aligning education with the Labor Commission, and of course, international practices and a standpoint from entrepreneurship as well. How can we combine and create that ecosystem is something that definitely can come out from this panel. At this point in time, we do have a couple minutes to take 2 questions. Ooh, I love it. You are waiting patiently there.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Jamie. I come from the trenches of secondary school classrooms. I know I was not alone in the impact of the gentleman from the Sandals family. So I want to piggyback on both your words here today and his. One, our mindset has to be that skills evolve, not reform, changing the way we see TVETs and IT vets in Belize. So one, changing that mindset. Culturally, we have to start looking at skills earlier than tertiary. We need to capture skills as early as high school, if not primary school, to be able to capture some of the talent that's being lost along the education system. We invest on the plus side of 25% of our national budget in education. We should be able to determine what skills and what number of our Belizeans are able to be amplified, because we agree all Belizeans have talent. So we need to make sure we are amplifying that along the way. 2, we want to own our brand as educators. So I'm asking that we please look at evolving the transcripts that our students are exiting school with, to be able to have documents that are accredited, that are versed in what skills they're able to do. That way, if you have special needs or if you are differently abled, you are not locked into numerical reports. I believe that we have to start appreciating the value of competencies, both academically, but from exposure. So Sandal sends 25 travel agents around the world. We need to make sure that if our students go around the world to leadership conferences, to view different countries, that they come back and they are given credit for that. And then in designing or appreciating God's design in each of us, we have to make sure that the gifts that our Belizean students are blessed with are appreciated from the very young preschooler, that the parents in the room will appreciate, that they gift to teachers. We need to make sure that we are fitting our teachers with the skills they need to be able to see beyond what numbers they're expected to graduate. And finally, please, let's continue to invest in Belize. So thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Here we go again. Thank you for that. Beautifully said. I don't know if any one of the panelists want to compliment what she said or agree to it. At this point in time, it was definitely in line with what we were discussing here specifically. So.
Yeah, I think I'll comment on Ms. Jamie and her comments. I really think that investing in Belize and in the people of Belize is the main thing. If you're a business owner, if you have a manufacturing facility, or if you're a small business, you need skilled labor. The most impressive or the most impactful investment you can make is in your labor force. How does that look, right? It can look many ways, but the fact that if you're supporting your local teachers or you're supporting a vocational training program, but that investment from industry leaders or industry champions at the ground level is where you're going to see the impact, right? Recently, we brought students from St. Ignatius High School to the U.S. last year, and to see the teacher that we brought, the administrators we brought, and the students we brought, their eyes open up, and it becomes really relevant. It becomes, awesome to see their eyes light up to understand what investment in them looks like. And when they arrived and they got to see the different schools, they got to visit the companies, it speaks to the point with IDB how, 1% of a cognitive change can impact the GDP, right? That small investment on a local level can have national, ripples. So that's my point.
Thank you. Definitely agree. So thanks for that feedback and, of course, the response regarding the importance of aligning, of course, vocational training, teachers, and education system on a whole. With that said, I think I am done with time. I've been seeing my little timekeepers flagging me up there, but it's indeed a very, very important discussion we have, and they will all be around in the room for the next 2 days, so approach them. If you have further questions, ask them, and we can all connect and look at how we can, strengthen our labor force and bridge those skills gaps that we have in Belize. So thank you once again.